morning, good evening. Welcome to Red Barn Samplers. My name is Ray Niles, and you've stumbled into the third episode being produced by Red Barn Samplers. I'm really happy to be able to spend some time with you this afternoon and have a lot of things I want to share about reproduction samplers, antique samplers, and more importantly, answer some of the questions that have been left in the comments as well as private messaged me a couple weeks ago. So let's dig in. First off, I want to thank the following people who have taken the time to either comment in their own Flosstube or to reach out as a way to support what's happening with Red Barn Samplers. Those include Stitch Folk, Barry from Stitch Folk, The Contented Stitcher, Brenda and Laura, the Serial Starter, Susan Stanley from Stitch in Time, the Colorado Stitcher, as well as the Raspberry Stitcher. I'm super excited to have the support of my fellow colleagues and those that are interested in supporting the craft as well. I also have a big thank you to some individuals who did a little research for me last month. If you recall, last month I was offering a free download for a sampler that I really knew nothing about based on what I could see in the frame. And it wasn't until I removed the frame that I was able to find a card that had been placed there in 1993 by a woman named Agnes. And let me show you what that card looked like. This is the card. And if you open up the card, you can see that this is the back, this is the front, and inside it was also a bill of sale. Now, the handwritten note, if you recall, was written by a woman named Agnes Smith Buchanan Rogers, and she was writing to provide information about the sampler that had been stitched by her mother in Oak Bank School in 1883, when her mother was 10 years old. The sampler itself had no indication of who had stitched it other than it had been stitched in Oak Bank School, nor did it have a year. The other thing, if you recall, was that the bill of sale for the framing revealed that it was framed on August 31st, but the handwritten note was actually placed in the frame the next day. So in my mind, I believe that Agnes, wanting to preserve the work done by her mother, carefully peeled back the brown paper on the back of the frame and placed her card in there so that whoever came across it, whenever it was taken apart, would know who had stitched it. You'll also recall that when I was charting it, let me grab this here. When I was charting it, I did not see that there was a hidden border. And the hidden border around this was a much darker, plummy red color. And you can kind of see that in the frame here. It also had faded so that all of the words and all of the letters had faded very evenly. And it wasn't until I removed it that I was able to see what the original colors should have been. So I took this to my local frame shop, my local needlework shop, Heart's Desire in Wichita, Kansas, and I asked them to help me preserve this in a way that would give dignity and honor to Jemima Fortune Cunningham Smith, the little girl who stitched it when she was 10 years old. So I purposely had it mounted to a lighter piece of mat boarding so that you could enjoy the border. And then I also went through and I charted the original so that all of it reflects this darker color. So if you're interested in downloading this, please go to www.redbarnsamplers.com, click on Jemima Fortune Cunningham Smith, and you add it to your cart. You don't have to add a credit card. You don't have to provide any money. It's all free. And their story is also attached as well. I felt it was important to honor her work, and in doing so, I also asked if anyone in the stitching community might have additional information to share. And I do want to thank some individuals specifically. Those individuals include a woman named Jo, a woman named Allison, and a woman named Lauren. They all provided various bits and pieces about the story of not only Jemima, but also Agnes, her daughter, including even a picture of the school. So what was revealed was that Agnes actually is probably the hero of the story, right? Agnes is the woman who at the age of, I believe, 83, she's the one that put the card in the back of the framed picture. And from what we can find is that Agnes was born in 1909, not too far from Falkirk, Stirling, seemingly the youngest of the family and probably the only girl based on what the records have revealed. She was named Agnes Smith Buchanan again, have since learned that many girls were given the maiden name of their mother, and sometimes they called her Nan growing up. In 1935, she married a gentleman named Marcus Rogers. They had at least 2 children in the early 1940s. Agnes died in 1999 at the grand old age of 90 and is buried very close to where she was born. Jemima Fortune Cunningham Smith was born in 1873 in Kelvin, nowadays, which is part of Glasgow. And if you remember, Jemima is the one that stitched this little sampler. Jemima was the mother of Agnes. Jemima's parents were Thomas Cunningham and Janet, also known as Jessie, who married in 1866 and went on to have a son and 5 daughters. 2 of those daughters, Euphemia and Anne, they died as babies. And Thomas was a baker by trade. So her dad was a baker, and the family probably moved to Glasgow with the hopes of better opportunities. Additionally, Jemima married Peter Buchanan in 1895. And as mentioned, they had 4 children, James, Thomas, Peter, and Agnes. Soon after they married, Peter and Jemima moved to Bonnybridge, where they remained throughout the rest of their lives. Now, the interesting thing is that what we know about Jemima's father and what we know about what Jemima did is that in 1809 on the census, Jemima and her sister, named Jessie, is listed as a cotton weaver. So I think there's some irony there that we have the textile and that she also was a needle worker or a textile maker. So if you're interested in finding additional information on this, check the website. I will be adding some of these notes to that as well. But a big thank you to the women who took the time to dive in, find that information for me, and to share it as well. The thing that I found most humbling of all was that one of the ladies was actually from clear around the other side of the world. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I also thought, well, I'll go ahead and show what I started, even though I did it wrong. This is how I started mine out. I had it pretty much all done, only to realize that after I took the glass out, I had used the wrong colors. So if you look at downloading it, you'll notice that the colors are the correct ones on the chart, and it's more of that raspberry plummy red on the side. So shifting gears a little, back to my first episode, I mentioned that I was stitching a Blackbird's Design hedgerow birds bag. And I just thought it was beautiful. It was done on 20 count linen it's straw by Weeks Dye Works. And this is it finished. So again, front and back. And I used the lace zipper across the top. And again, if you're not using the lace zippers, they are magic because you just literally lay them down and sew them on. There's no trick to it at all. And it is lined. So with the lace zippers, I was able to do a French seam on it. So everything is covered. And the zipper works great, and I have this little bag to take with me for my stitching. So thank you to those who asked about that. I'm happy to share that as well. I also had another person ask me about how do you use your tag gun. So let me show you how I do that as well. The first thing you're gonna need is the fabric or whatever it is that you're choosing to tag. Maybe you tag your kids' clothes, I don't know. I just grabbed one of my floss cards, and this happens to be from Cindy Stitches. So Cindy, thank you for this. You're in the demo. So I'm going to put the tag on. I've got my gun, which is loaded, and I think you get like literally 15,000 tags on this. I poke a hole through it, so you can kind of see there's a hole through there. Let's do it this way maybe. And then I click the lever, and the tag is attached. So I use it to tag my linens so I know what the name of it is and the count. But again, I'll put the link to Amazon down below. I believe this was like under $10, and it came fully loaded with 15,000 of these little tags in a separate little box. I think you load them in count of 100, so I literally have thousands left to use. So again, if you haven't used that, it's a great little gadget to have in your craft studio as well. Also, I was watching Sherry from the Colorado Cross Stitcher. And one of the things I love about Sherry is that there's always something to learn when I watch her. And she had shared about her reference books that had been written by Betty Ring. And that got me thinking about a PDF book that is available for free from Scottish Antiquaries that is called Remember Now Thy Creator, Scottish Samplers from 1700 to 1872 by Naomi Tarrant. At one time, that was very, very difficult to find in hard copy. and it's since been made available for free for anyone who wants to download it. So I will be providing that link in the comments below, and then you can also see it here across the screen if you want to take a screen grab of it. But the really cool thing is that the book has some wonderful illustrations, and if for no other reason, just the eye candy that you might enjoy being able to cruise through that book. So just a great book. Again, Naomi Tarrant, Remember Now Thy Creator, Scottish samplers from 1700 to 1872, provided off the Scottish Antiquaries site. So a nice addition to your reference library as well. Also, I want to thank Rosella Hansen and Sharon, who reached out to me the end of August as they were coming into Wichita, and they said, would you want to meet? And I said, I would love that. So we met in a place called Reverie Coffee Shop in downtown Wichita, had a wonderful visit. They invited my friend and I to actually come over and meet them where they were staying with their other friend. We thought it was going to be a 5-minute conversation. I think we were there about an hour and a half. Truly delightful, very much enjoyed it. So again, if you are traveling in the Wichita area and you'd love to connect, please let me know. I would meet you at the Heart's Desire cross stitch shop. I would meet you at a coffee shop, but I would love to meet you if you're traveling through this direction. Also, I want to thank each and every one of you that followed me on my trip here recently to Spain and to Portugal. Truly a trip of a lifetime. If you're not following me on Instagram, please feel free. It's Red Barn Samplers, or you can follow my private account too, which is Ray Niles. I tried to post about 10 pictures a day that kind of captured what we saw in both Spain and Portugal. And the cool part was, for a girl in Kansas, seeing things that were over 1,000 years old that were still standing in all their majesty and all their glory was really breathtaking. So I would encourage you to kind of cruise through some of those pictures. There were some other people on the trip as well. They're tagged in my Instagram. You're welcome to take a look at those. Jeanette Douglas was on the trip. She's got pictures posted as well. Polly Panache and also Polly Kalish too. So some great pictures if you're interested in going to Spain or Portugal. Also want to take a moment to mention some of the people that have finished some of the designs by Red Barn Samplers. Roxy V on Instagram has finished W. Wallace, and it's beautiful. If you haven't taken a look, please feel free to do so. And also, if you're not following her, you might want to. Thistle 19, which is Renee, she also has finished Oakbank School, or is working on it. It might not be completely done yet, but is working on it. It's beautiful. Kara Ponder finished M. Holloway. Again, beautiful little stitch, looks great. Of course, the Raspberry Stitcher, she's always stitching things, so take a look at her work as well. There's lots of great options in how people are stitching what they're working on. Now, I want to take a moment. I had a friend say to me, who's not a stitcher, she goes, what's this sampler thing you're doing? I don't really get it. And I was like, it got me thinking that there may be people watching this that aren't stitchers. And so I thought I should take the time to kind of explain what I know about samplers and welcome input from any of you to additionally add comments or commentary around it. And so I pulled actually three from my own personal collection to kind of use as examples. So let me grab this first one. Now, what makes a sampler, right? So a sampler is typically a textile that has been stitched, usually by a little girl, but many times it could have been a boy or it could have been a teacher as well. And this one in particular is some of the tiniest stitching I've ever seen on a sampler. It was stitched by a woman or a young girl named Anne Lucy Massey, January 27th, 1823. And again, some of the tiniest stitching I've ever seen. The blue alphabet are all Algerian eyes, which is a form of stitching. And my friend said to me, well, why did they put alphabets on there? Didn't they know their alphabet? In some cases, Mama would take the time to teach the little girls or the little boys their letters by asking them to stitch those letters. So they would stitch them to remember the letters, and they would stitch numbers as well. You may find that in some samplers there's a J missing. Sometimes they didn't put a J in there because of the language. You may find that sometimes the letters are backwards because these little girls didn't have patterns to follow. You may also find, in many cases, there's some type of virtuous verse, something that would represent the type of individual that they would strive to be. Now, why is that? Well, many times the sampler was used to demonstrate their prowess with the needle, could they stitch, and also the ability to mark their household linens once they got married. So it was part of their dowry. But if you were trying to instill in a young child kind of the virtues of honesty and fairness and kindness, you may have them memorize a certain verse, typically from the Bible or a hymnal or some type of literature that maybe was being read, and then that would be included in the sampler. So on this one, there's it says, "'Tis our part as Christians to forget the wrongs we feel, to pardon trespasses our very foes, to love and cherish, to do good to all, live peaceably and be in all our acts wise, as the serpent, gentle as the dove." And again, beautiful stitching, just beautiful stitching, has a border around it. And in some cases, Mama probably framed them, attached them to a piece of board and stuck them on the wall. In other cases, Mama had the little girl fold up the sampler and stick it away in a trunk. In some cases, it was laid flat. In other cases, if you get them, you can kind of see the crease mark that's kind of like an X on it. But regardless, a sampler is the only antique that is actively collected that was created by a child. Think about that. We collect stamps, we collect coins, we collect antiques of all kinds. But the only antiques that we are really collecting globally that was actually created by a child is a sampler. I love that. I love being able to take their work and being able to reproduce that and being able to share it with the world. So this one is one example from my collection. So this set is actually two. And why would I show you two? Well, the reason I want to show you two is it was done by the same girl. But let me point out a couple things. This is highly likely the first sampler the little girl did. Very plain, very modest, has the alphabet. It has her uppercase, lowercase, her numbers, and it has her name, Priscilla Salcombe, 1843. Down below is the next year, October 30th, 1844, and it's much more involved. Notice the difference between the border here. It's very plain. The border around it. Notice this border has a lot more going on. You also have that Grecian chain that's going on there, which is the serpenty up and down red. You've got black and yellow variegation between the lowercase alphabet. And then you've got a very common verse, "Jesus, permit thy gracious name to stand," has the first efforts of the infant's hand. "And while my fingers on the canvas move, engage my tender heart to seek thy love." And again, Priscilla Salcombe, October 30th, 1844. I love this. I love that that we're able to see growth. And as an educator for 22 years, one of my former careers, we all know that when you see a child that can actually demonstrate what they've done from point A to point B and to be able to see that growth, it's very rewarding. So I've got many, many, many other samplers I'll be sharing with all of you. But these two were examples that I thought would really kind of demonstrate some of the things that we look for when we're looking at samplers. The year on them is always helpful. Sometimes when the girl gives their age, that's also very helpful because then you're able to find out when was the girl born, and you're able to go to some of the genealogy sites to actually uncover more about that girl. I love antique textiles. I love antique samplers. I love the stories that come with those samplers. And more importantly, I love being able to share them with the world. So whether you're a stitcher or not, maybe you're just somebody who likes good history, maybe you're somebody who just likes a good story, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. My goal is to do twice a month. And now that my traveling has kind of subsided a little bit, I will probably stick to that. I'm going to try and answer the questions as people send them. And I also decided, not only was I an educator for 22 years, I also worked for a very large technology company. And my goal in that job for 15 years was really to help connect the dots between teaching and learning and the devices that were being used. So I thought about this. I had great response from the tip I gave about the magnifier. And I thought, I should do that every time. I should provide some little tip that could be used to enhance the work that we're doing with the devices that we all carry in our pockets. And maybe then that would help us all think about how we can use, whether it's an iPhone or an Android, to our advantage as stitchers. So one of the things I want to show you is if you go to a website and you're wanting to take a picture of something. So if I go to Red Barn Samplers, just www.redbarnsamplers.com, and let's say that a friend said, hey, could you send me a picture of what that looks like? So here's the website, and I just want to send that image right there from my phone. Now, some of you may know this, some of you may not, but if I hold down the button on the right, which is the on-off button, or the wake, non-wake, and the top button on the left, what I get is a screenshot. And it puts it down in the corner, and then I tap on that and I get a bunch of tools. Now I know that many of us sometimes will send these screenshots and it has all this gobbledygook around it. Wouldn't it be great if we could clean that up? So one way to do that is to grab the handles and move it up, and grab the handle and move it down, and grab this handle and move it over, and this handle and move it over. And when you do, you have a really nice image. And then I can use the share arrow up here at the top, and it will tell me, do you want to email it? Do you want to send it as a message? Do you want to save it to notes? Do you want to put it in your photos? Whatever the choice is, now I have a clean image, and I'm able to send that off as a clean image. So again, it's a great little trick, tip to be able to use. If you're not using that to crop your photos, I would encourage you to do so. Just grab those handles and you've got a really clean opportunity to send to your friends. So with that, I want to thank you for dialing in this afternoon. Again, encourage you to hit the bell and subscribe to this channel. Share it with your friends. And if you have other things that you would like to see covered, please feel free to reach out to me. It's always a joy to hear from each and every one of you. And again, thank you for joining me today, and may your floss never twist. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.